everyone, and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Tuesday, September 20th, 2022, and this is episode 231. I'm Carol, also known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry, and I live east of Vancouver in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada. I hope you're all doing well, that you've had a good couple of weeks since we last spoke. What a difference 13 days makes. I was in the process of editing episode 230 when I learned that the Queen was ill and that members of the royal family were heading to Balmoral to be with her. And it was either just before or after the episode went live that I learned that Queen Elizabeth had passed away. Still kind of hard to believe. I'm sure, like most of you, she is the only British monarch that I have known in my lifetime, and it seems very odd to think that we now have a king, King Charles III. I think it will start to sink in more once we start seeing his face on our stamps and currency, but my understanding is that won't be until after his coronation. I had planned to get up at 3 a.m. to watch the funeral live, but I had a hard time going to sleep before that, and when the time came, I just thought I could watch it later on YouTube. So I went back to sleep and watched it feeling much more rested. All the pomp and circumstance was something to see. And I just kept thinking that we are witnessing a very significant historical event, and feel actually kind of privileged to be alive when this happened. Let's see what else. It was kind of smoky this morning. We've had, well, we're getting, I think, smoke now from south of the border, but we've had a couple of wildfires closer to home, and one day, I think it was last week, Vancouver had the dubious distinction of having the worst air quality of any major city in the world, and it was actually worse out here in the valley. Thankfully, it's been kind of blustery this morning, and the sky is looking much clearer, and my lungs are grateful for it. I was definitely feeling the effects of the smoke this morning. Let's talk some knitting, but first I need to remind you that the Year of the Stash is, well, I don't need to remind you, I'd like to remind you that the Year of the Stash make-along is taking place in the A Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group. There is a general Year of the Stash chatter thread and also a monthly personal sock yarn club. You are welcome to join in anytime. Just read the first post in all of the pertinent threads, and that will give you all the information you need to know to participate. Also, just a reminder that if you took part in August's chatter thread or the July Personal Sock Yarn Club, I still have 2 prizes that are not yet claimed. So if you did participate in those, go back and watch episode 230 and see if you're a winner, because I'd really like to get these prizes in the mail and off to you. I have a finished project this week. I didn't really expect to, but I picked up what I'm calling my vacation socks when my other socks reached a point where I wasn't in a position to work on them. And then I got so far along, I decided I would just finish them up so that I could have them kind of out of the way and move on to something else. This yarn is Bergère de France Gumi 50, and this is the Emprem Beige colorway. As I mentioned a couple weeks ago when I first showed them to you, there was a time where this was a very popular colorway of this yarn amongst some podcasters, which is where I first saw it. But I have to say, when I actually started knitting with it, I was a little bit disappointed because it wasn't as pretty as I expected it to be. But having said that, it's kind of grown on me as I've worked with it. And I do like that I added a pop of color here in the heel with some leftover yarn. And so yeah, now that they're done, they're actually okay. They're wearable. I'm gonna bring them in a little bit closer so you can see. So as you can see, it's kind of stripy, and there are speckles every so often, and this kind of apricot colored, clay colored stripe. Some versions of this colorway have much more pronounced patterning, and that's what I was anticipating when I ordered it. It is my usual 64 stitch top down plain vanilla sock on a 2mm needle. I did a traditional heel flap and gusset, my usual rounded toe. So yeah, another sock for the books. And I've had this yarn in my stash for a while, so it was good to use it up. I pulled this yarn, it was a 50-gram ball, out of stash. I don't know how to say the company name. I'll write it on the screen. And yeah, I don't even know, it looks like I bought it from the yarn shop where I used to work because I recognize the tag, the price tag on it. But I don't even know what I used it for because it was a 50-gram ball and I had used very little of it to start with. So I don't know where it came from exactly. But anyway, it served the purpose for this project. So that's good. And now I've tucked it in with my other kind of utilitarian solid sock yarns because I could see myself potentially using it for heels or toes or cuffs at a later date too. All right, so one finished project, that's it. But I have been knitting quite a bit, especially last weekend. My husband was away for 3 days on a golf trip, so I gave myself permission to just relax and knit, 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 knit. This week has been less productive. We were away one day and then away from home doing things for a couple more days, but I have got a fair bit accomplished on various things. So I think I'll start with my September Personal Sock Yarn Club socks. So I believe I showed these to you last week. This is Fiber Nymph Dye Works Bounce. Just looking for the label here. Here it is. That's an 80/20 Superwash Merino nylon base from Fiber Nymph Dye Works. This is the Apple Turnovers colorway, and this was part of the Encore Yarn and Fiber Club from last September. This was an encore of the Just Desserts Club, hence the name Apple Turnovers. And I was going through my bin of Fiber Nymph Dye Works yarn, looking for a potential color to use for a heel in this sock, and I came across the information sheet from the club. So I was all wrong last week. The colorways represent pecans, cranberries, and apples, and then the golden brown of the pastry. So there you go. Now I had gotten to this point on both socks, and I actually put the heel in for one of them, just knitting from the ball using the stripes, but I didn't like where the color placement ended up at the end of the stripe, and so I thought if I had a complementary color I would knit for another couple of stripes and then add in a short row heel. So I did find this leftover mini skein of warm honey, and I think that will work just fine. So yeah, I'll knit 2 more stripes. I've got the same amount done on both socks. So then once I knit those couple of stripes, I'll add in some heels, and then I'll be on the home stretch. So I'm a little bit later with these in the month than I like to be, but I think if I spend some time on them, I could get them wrapped up before the end of September. Not that I have to, but I have been trying to knit my Personal Sock Yarn Club socks within the month, even though you do have 2 months to complete yours if you're participating in the club for prizes. So yeah, I'm enjoying this yarn. It's fun, very, autumny, and not much more to say about that. My usual 2x2 rib plain vanilla sock on 2mm needle, top down, as you can see. I've been using these Knitter's Pride Carbons. I think that's what the brand is. Yeah, Knitter's Pride Carbons. I have a love-hate relationship with these needles. I like the way they feel. I like the cords. I like the way they look. Unfortunately, with the way I knit, sometimes these tips get loose on me. So I have a couple of pairs that I can use, but I try not to. I can use them in a pinch. They're not like totally broken off, but right now I do have 2 pairs that are solid, so hopefully they'll stay that way. I don't think it's necessarily a fault of the needle. I think it's probably just the way I knit combined with the design of the needle that I run into that problem. While I was anticipating the release of Clue 3 of the Mountain Musings Mystery Shawl Knit Along, I cast on something new. Now, you would have thought that would be the perfect time for me to work on my ranunculus, especially after I was so enthusiastic about it on my last episode. But it's at a point where I really need to look at it and do some math, and I just haven't been in that headspace. And so unfortunately, I haven't even touched it since last episode. But while I was here in my craft room, either setting up for or cleaning up from episode 130, I spotted the leftovers of this Party of 5 mini skein set by Sweet Georgia Yarns. I had used it along with 2 other yarns for my Wild Bees wrap by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade. And I wondered if there would be enough yarn to make another one of these. Yes, it is Brighten Up by Lisa K. Ross of Paper Daisy Creations, who is incidentally is also the designer of the Mountain Musing shawl. I can't explain what it is about this pattern. I just love it. I enjoy the process of putting together the different color combinations, and I just love the process of actually knitting this. So as it turned out, one of the colorways, Endless Summer, I just had very, very small amount left. The dried lavender, I also didn't have enough, but I had leftovers from a full skein of dried lavender that I had used for another Helen Stewart shawl called Lavender Fields. So I had enough dried lavender using that. The Golden Hour colorway was touch and go, but I have a full mini skein of it in another Party of 5 set that I can pull from if I need to. And then it looked like I would have enough Desert Clay and Pink Flamingo based on another Brighten Up that I had previously knit out of the same type of yarn. This is the Tough Love Sock by Sweet Georgia Yarns. So then I pulled out the other leftovers from the Wild Bees wrap, which was a partial skein of Tough Love Sock in Rose Day, and then also a little bit left of a Lichen and Lace 80/20 sock in the Daylily colorway. And I weighed it all out and played around with it, and I decided that I would have enough to make a cowl. I originally cast on with the pink flamingo colorway, but when I finished the first part of the cowl, which is the, let me just see if I can, which is the back here and it ends here, I didn't really like when I joined in the next color here. I just didn't like how it looked. And so, judging from how much I'd used, I thought I might be able to get away with switching the places of desert clay and pink flamingo. And then as it turned out, I didn't quite have enough to do that, but I've figured out a workaround for it. So enough talking, why don't I show it to you? And this is actually a great opportunity for you to see how this cowl is constructed, because it's really, really interesting. So I'll show you the back first. So this is my beginnings. So yeah, I'd originally put the pink flamingo here. So I started with desert clay, and then I added in the daylily here. I went to the dried lavender. Then this is golden hour, and then you can see the bright pink, which is pink flamingo there. So that's the back. Then what you do is you start knitting here. You join the two together. You knit all the way down here, and then you cast on a whole bunch of stitches. And you join it in the round, and you start working your way in. So there are 4 decrease points. So right at the, where you join here, at the top here, over here, and then at the bottom. So what will happen is, I'll put this on over my head so maybe that'll help you understand. So if I put this on, it's a little awkward with the needles, but this whole part here becomes this. So you gradually decrease, 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 and you end up with this part in the front. Isn't it ingenious? I just think it's ingenious. So what I end up doing is I used the daylily here, and then I used the rosé day in the same, so I used it as color 2 here, the daylily is color 2 here, and then I switched my color 2 to rosé day because I didn't have enough of either one to do the full thing. And then as it turned out, I didn't have quite enough of the, what's it, clay, desert clay colorway to finish off this section of color 1. So what I ended up doing is doing 1 stripe with the desert clay, 1 stripe with daylily, 1 stripe with desert clay. And I think they're similar enough that it doesn't, you know, like leap out at you like, oh, she used the wrong yarn there. And I should have enough of all the other colorways to just complete it as it's supposed to be, using, you know, colors 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the right place. So you can see I got quite gung-ho on it, and then I put it away when clue 3 of the Mountain Musings Mystery Shawl came out. So I'm going to show that to you now. And fair warning, I'm going to talk at more length about it today and show more of it. So if you are working on it and you don't want to be spoiled, I will put in like a timestamp and a, I think it's called a chapter. So if you wanted to just leap ahead, you can do that. So fair warning, I am going to talk about it now. just a reminder, I am knitting my shawl from this box of Loveliness. This is the Majestic Vista colorway of the Mounted Musings MCal set from Sweet Paprika Designs. And this yarn is just heavenly. It is a blend of merino, cashmere, and silk, and I just adore working with it. I love this colorway. I'm so happy with how it is working up. I could just not be happier with it. So on clue 1, we started with a square. We started in the middle and worked our way out. And I can't remember if clue 1 ended with this color or this color, but clue 2 incorporated the last several mini skeins, and so once clue 2 was done, we had a square that had all of the colors represented in it. And then when we started clue 3, we discovered we weren't knitting a square, we were knitting a diamond. And clue 3 has been worked along 2 of these edges. So these clues were called topography. And then I'll show you the whole thing in a minute, but I just want to show you the different sections separately. So then we moved on to dewdrops, I think. Dewdrop eyelet. So that's that. And then we moved to plateaus and valley. So it's a mosaic design. And I had finished the entire section here, and then I realized I was supposed to work 2 rows of the navy stocking stitch here. And I decided I just couldn't leave it, and so I took it back, put in the 2 rows, and then did all of this over again. But I'm glad I did, because it does center it within this panel. Then came geodes, which is this cool slipped stitch pattern. And finally, we are working, or I am working right now on wildflower fields. And it looks like this so far. So again, a really interesting stitch pattern. So now I will show it to you as it looks. Oh, hopefully without taking the needle out. So I am anticipating that these colors and patterns will be repeated on this side, but I don't know that for sure, obviously, because it is a mystery. And whether clue 4 will introduce the last several colors on this side, or whether we'll repeat this on this side, obviously I have no way of knowing. But I think it's beautiful so far. I just love how it's working up. And it's really cool to see it on camera and get a really good sense of it. So, yeah, that is my Mountain Musings mystery shawl. And so far, even though the clues are supposed to come out on Thursdays, they've all been coming out on Wednesdays. So perhaps tomorrow, clue 4 will come out. I'm hoping so, but I'm hoping to finish off clue 3 today. Although it's quite a bit of knitting still to do on it, so we'll see. I think that's it for all my works in progress and finished projects. Let me just have a sip of my tea here. I'll tell you about a couple of upcoming projects, and at the same time I'll talk about acquisitions because they go hand in hand. I have so many boxes of Loveliness here. First up, I did mention that I was ordering some yarn for the Stephen West's Twists and Turns mystery shawl that's coming up. I think it's October 6th, something like that is when the first clue comes up. So I showed you last episode that I had a sweater's quantity of this Cascade 220 fingering. This is color 8400. I think it's called charcoal, but I'm not sure. And I had seen on the Stephen and Penelope website, and also in the video that Stephen West made about different yarn sets, I had seen a combination of a dark gray, a light gray, and a red, which I really liked. And so I went ahead and I ordered those colors in the same yarn. And oh, I love them even more now that I've seen them. I love those two together. So I'm hoping that they will, you know, be in the same spot at one point or play off each other. But those are the three together. And I really, really like them. So I'm very pleased to have been able to do, actually, considering you need 5 full skeins of yarn for it. These are all 50 grams. So I needed 4 of each of the grays and 2 of the red. Oh, by the way, I didn't tell you the colorway name. So this is 8401, which is silver. And then this is 9404 ruby. And on the screen, it's a little bit brighter, redder than it is in real life, which is, it's definitely a deeper red. That might be more accurate. In any case, I love it. And yeah, I'm just so pleased that I could do it for quite an affordable price. Because I already had this, and these were not expensive. So that's a lot of yarn to use in one project. So yes, there's my box of Loveliness for that one right there. And seeing that silver and red together got me thinking about another project. Now, I had recently seen a pattern by Elizabeth Doherty on one podcast, and then I later heard it mentioned on at least one more, if not 2. And it's a sweater called Sean. I'll put a picture of it here. I've heard a lot of people call it Scion or Cyan, but in somebody's notes on Ravelry, they mentioned it was pronounced Sean, and then I went looking on the internet, and it turns out it is a Welsh or Irish name, and is pronounced Sean. So I needed to order something else from Yarn Canada, which is where I got the Cascade yarn. And they carry Rowan felted tweed, which is what a lot of people have made their Sean sweaters out of. And so I got this color. It is it's called Clay. It's color 177, and it has a lot of blue in it, silvery blue. So I wanted the red, and I ordered this skein of, it's called Rage. It's number 150, Rage. You can see it also has blue in it, as well as a little bit of odd speck of like silvery color, even a bit of yellow. So those two go together very nicely. It's not as bright as the ruby. They definitely are different, but they're both red and both a good contrast. And then I was a little bit nervous because I didn't know for sure how they were going to look together because I didn't have a skein in hand. So I also ordered a skein of this blue, which is 178 Seasalter. And they also go together very well. And in fact, the three of them go together really well. So my thought is to do the red, but then if I have some leftovers, I could do something with the two of these together, or the three of these together, or order another skein of one or the other if I need it to make it work, you know, a hat or something. But yeah, either of the Seasalter or the Rage definitely works with the clay. But I love the red and silver together, and so that's what I'll be doing. I just really, really, really want to cast it on now, and I just can't. There's just too much on the go, but I may swatch for it just so that when I do have that kind of opening in my knitting schedule that I can cast it on. So yes, so there's another box of Loveliness. I love getting mail like this. So what I had ended up ordering was some more needle tips. I showed you, I think last week, I'm working on the Dogwood Blossoms cardigan. And I said that I was a little bit, wasn't totally in love with working the sleeves magic loop because they were leaving, here, let me just, I've got yarn coming off these. So wherever you change needles, you could see a line. Now I did steam block, and that's the top of the sleeve, so that's not so bad. And then this is the sleeve seam. So you're going to have a seam regardless. So what I decided to do is I ordered, initially when I ordered the yarn for the Stephen West shawl, I ordered one 12-inch circular in the right size, which is a 2.75 millimeter for my knitting, my gauge. And I also ordered a 4-inch tip for to go on my 8-inch interchangeable cord. They're both Chagu. And I was curious which I would like better. So what I decided is that for the smaller circumference, I prefer this 12-inch circular. If you remember, at one point I tried 9-inch circulars for knitting socks and really didn't like them. I don't love the 12-inch, but I like them better than the Magic Loop for sure. I've only knit a few rows with them. And then I also did try the, oh, actually I mixed up these. This is the 12-inch. This is actually the 4-inch tips with the 8-inch cord. And it's a little bit trickier to work, a little bit tighter, but I think this will be better as the sleeve expands, and perhaps at some point I can even put a longer cord in here. So what I'm going to do for now is work both sleeves on the 12-inch circular until they reach a point where I think it will be better to work it on this, I guess it works out to 16-inch, 4 plus 8, yeah. So anyway, I had ordered one of each before, decided what I wanted, decided I wanted them both, and so I placed another order and got a second of each one. So tool-wise, this is turning out to be a fairly expensive sweater for me, but it's such a long-term project, and it's gonna take, if these sleeves are gonna take forever, I should be comfortable and happy with them as I go. Let me go get that phone and I'll be back in a second. I didn't get to the phone in time, but they didn't leave a message, so it could have been that important. Plus, it gave me a chance to warm up my tea. Even though I've got it in this thermal cup, it was still cooling down a little. I'm just going to take a sip. So yeah, I think that's all I needed to say about the needles. So I will continue working on the 12-inch circulars until such time when I feel like it would be beneficial to switch to the 4-inch tips with a 8-inch or larger cord. So I don't love any of these methods on this, knitting on a small circumference, but I think these are better than doing the magic loop. So it was worth picking them up for sure. More acquisitions, but this time it's clothing. You might have noticed my new t-shirt. So Natalie of the Love in Stitches podcast has a spreadshirt shop. And on her most recent episode, she mentioned that it was open for a limited time and that she had added new items in the definition collection. And so I went on and took a look, and I thought there were some really fun different definitions. So I chose this. This is a women's premium t-shirt. And you can see this is the knitting definition. So I'll stand there. Hopefully you can see it long enough. And I can't read it backwards, or I tell you what it says. And then I also ordered a women's premium hoodie. This one is in the procrastinating definition, because boy, do I ever know how to procrastinate. So it says delaying responsibility by knitting just one more row. And the antonyms are cooking and cleaning. So that's me all over. So I am really happy with the quality of these items. The fabric feels really nice. And one thing I appreciated is that there was a chart that told you the measurement from side seam to side seam at the bust. And so I was able to compare those measurements with some t-shirts and a favorite hoodie that I already own, and determine which size I wanted. So I ended up getting a small on both of them because I don't like really big and baggy, and I'm happy with the fit. So if you like something a little less fitted, you might want to go a size larger. I thought they were reasonably priced, but unfortunately I also ended up having to pay customs when they were delivered to me. So that did add to the cost, but I still think that they were worth the price that I paid, because the quality does feel very good and they seem to be well made. So if that's something you're interested in, I will put a link in the show notes. And I always forget to say that show notes can be found in several places. You can click on the little arrow that's to the bottom right of the screen, and that expands the notes section. So I always provide links to everything I talk about there. You can also find a link to the blog there where I also do show notes. And then I also every time I put out a new episode, I open a new thread in the A Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group with links also included. So and then, of course, if there's something I talk about that I, for some reason, don't have a link for, by all means, you can message me and I'll be happy to answer any questions. All right, I think that is it for all the acquisitions. I think that's enough, don't you? So much for the year of the stash. It wasn't supposed to be the year of acquiring stash. As for what's happening around here, well, we have returned to curling and it feels so good. So I think last episode I mentioned that we had a new team and that we had met up with these two women and done a practice session. So we have now played 2 games together. Let's just say we're still finding ourselves as a team. Cameron and I haven't curled in about 2.5 years. I know one of them, it's been at least a year. So, you know, we're all a little rusty, and of course we're just getting to know each other. So I'm sure we'll improve with time. Right now, it's a bit of a struggle, but thankfully nobody is like super serious and determined to win. Everyone is there for the social aspect and the exercise and the fun of it all. So you don't feel any pressure, at least. I think we're going to have a decent year. I'm also going to be curling tomorrow morning. I have put myself down as a spare for a Wednesday morning league, and I've already had 2 phone calls, and their first game is tomorrow. So I'm actually going to be sparing for my brother-in-law's team. He and my sister are away in Hawaii for a couple of weeks. And then coincidentally, my oldest sister is also on that team. So I get to curl with her tomorrow for the first time. She's a new curler. I think this is her 2nd year now. So I'm really excited about getting to play with her. And then I also know one other member of the team. He plays with my brother-in-law and sister on their Monday night team, and I've spared for their team in the past, so I've played with him. So it's just one person that I haven't met, but apparently he's a real nice guy too, so we should have fun even if we don't win. But you never know, maybe we will. So since I spoke to you last, it was last Thursday, 2 of my brothers-in-law. If you're new, I have 4 sisters, and I also have therefore 4 brothers-in-law on that side of the family, plus 2 others on, or 3 others, I guess, on Cameron's side. But there are 3 of my sisters live in the same city as I do. And so, yeah, lots of sisters, lots of brothers-in-law, and if I'm talking about one, it's not necessarily the same one as I talked about in the paragraph before. So 4 of us, 2 of my brothers-in-law, my husband and I went up to the cabin on Thursday just for the day, met up there with my cousin and his friend, and picked up my mom in town on the way out, and we closed up things for the season. So the last people who used the cabins, who happened to be some of our kids, they gave them a good going over as they closed up, so we didn't have to worry about cleaning anything as we usually do. We were just able to start draining the water lines, and then also we had put in a new water system last fall, and there's still little improvements to be made, and so they worked a little bit on that. My cousin's friend, he's a plumbing inspector. Like, he's the one who's guided us through the whole project and knows what he's doing. So he was kind enough to come up and help us out there. So we're hoping that next year will be even better. It all worked really well until the last weekend. So we discovered something that needs to be tweaked, and hopefully next year will be completely smooth. So yeah, it was kind of a long day. We left here at 6:30, and we had to stop to go pick up some parts for this water line before we left town. My cousin and his friend weren't able to get it where they were. So we did that, and then headed up, did some of the work, took a break for lunch, finished things up, and then we were out of there. I think we were home by 7:30. So quick turnaround, you know, basically a 13 hours, you know, between when we left and when we got home. But it got the job done, so that was good. And the weather up there was really nice. When we first were close, it was starting to sprinkle a bit, and there were thunderstorms predicted for the afternoon. But it all cleared up while we were there. It was beautiful, sunny, not too hot, not too cold. It was gorgeous. And then just as we were leaving, we could see the storm clouds coming in. So we timed it just right. So Cameron decided, since he was taking Thursday off, he might as well take Friday off too and just make a long weekend. So he and I went shopping on Thursday afternoon. The three things I hate shopping for the most are bathing suits, bras, and jeans. And I ended up shopping for 2 of the 3 that day. And Cameron, he was so patient, because it always takes longer than I think it's going to. But I found a nice new bathing suit that I was happy with. And then I had not bought bras and underwear since well before, probably the year before COVID. And I've been putting it off. They closed the store here in town where I used to go, so now I have to go further, and I hate the whole process. So finally it's like we're going away in a few weeks on a working holiday, and it's like I really need, like, you know, what happens if the plane crashes, right? You know that old thing with your mom saying, put on clean underwear in case you're in a car accident? Well, I'm joking, of course. But yeah, so took a long time, but I got what I needed. So that was good to cross those things off my list. And at least I didn't need to buy jeans, at least not right now. So I didn't have to do all 3, but 2 out of 3 was bad enough. And then on Saturday, we were gone again the whole day. Left here, I think about 10 o'clock and got home about 10 o'clock. In that evening, we were playing golf in a staff tournament for Cameron's work. And it's about an hour's drive from where we live, so get there, you know, to sign in and have a bite to eat. Then by the time you play golf and have dinner, and they do prizes and stuff, and then drive home, it's a full day. But we had, again, the weather was just perfect. Not too hot, not too cold. We saw a bunch of different wildlife on the course. We saw a coyote just as we were heading out to the first tee. I was about to tee off on about halfway through, and all of a sudden a bear walked out, like, right in front of us, and so we had to wait until it meandered off and ended up going on to the adjoining fairway. I was just sauntering along, eating grass. It would look at us. It wasn't too bothered. We're kind of nervous, obviously, and just gave it plenty of room and hoped that it would just disappear. And apparently there was more than just that one bear out on the course. I talked to someone later who said they saw 3. So 1 was plenty. And then we saw deer in a few places. And again, like, they weren't frightened. One just walked, like, right by us within feet to join. It was a young one. Just walked right by us to join its mother. Didn't care. So that was really cool to get some really close-up looks at the deer, and then we saw a couple of muskrats in 2 different ponds. I'm trying to think what else was at it. That's all I can think of. Anyway, plus we had lots of fun playing golf. We played golf with one of the managers, or sorry, the manager of one of the stores that my husband oversees. He's a little bit younger than our kids, and he and I hit it off on a work trip one time, and so he's sort of like one of my kids is how I think of him. And then his girlfriend played with us, and she's a new golfer. That was I think the 3rd time she'd played golf. So we just do best ball, and so it's a good way for a new golfer to just be able to enjoy the course without having a lot of pressure. So yeah, we had fun with that and nice dinner afterwards. So overall, just yeah, really good weekend. And then Cameron was back to work Monday. It was here because of the Queen's funeral. It was a national day of mourning, and then our province also designated it as so our schools were out, for instance, and if you were a government worker, you were off, but it didn't affect Cameron's work, so he was back to work Monday. But he's golfing today. It's with customers, and it's for this charity golf tournament, so he's got a pretty nice day of work today, and the sun's shining. Again, not too hot, not too cold. So he used to have a cup that said a bad day fishing is better than a good day working. So I think he could translate the same thing for golfing. So he did go in early and do some work, but he'll enjoy the rest of the day with golf. All right, I think that's everything, so that just leaves me to something good. So I wanted to mention a few new to me podcasts that I've been watching, video podcasts. So first one is Wool and Wine. That is 3 friends. I believe they're in Ohio, I think near Dayton. I think that's what they said. And Tammy reached out to me on YouTube with a comment. She's a viewer, and then she let me know that she has a podcast too. So I finally got around to checking it out. So Tammy, Claudia, and Janet, 3 friends that knit together and drink together. So they have some beautiful knitted items that they show every week. They're very prolific knitters, very prolific sweater knitters especially, and then they love wine, and so they introduce a bottle of wine every week and taste it and let us know what they think of it. So very enjoyable. So hi Tammy, I've really enjoyed watching it. The Knitty Stew, which is Leanne. She's in Calgary, Alberta, but she is a flight attendant for WestJet, which is a Canadian airline, and she films from her hotel rooms in her various destinations, and then she also takes us on field trips. So it wasn't until several episodes in that she explained her name. So I guess Stew is a nickname for stewardess. So she is the Knitty Stew. I couldn't figure out how, like, the stew that you eat, how it had any connection with knitting. So when she explained, it's like, oh, the light bulb went off. Okay, that makes total sense then. And then I've been watching, I'm just trying to catch up on episodes of Knit Together with Kim and Jonna, and they are 2 friends in New York City, and they film regular episodes every so often where they talk about what they're knitting right then. what they've finished, but they also record various what they call mini-sodes, which are just as long as regular episodes, but they have more of a theme to them. So one of them, they talked about sock knitting tips and tricks, and then they had another where they discussed viewers' contributions, what their sock knitting tips and tricks were. One that I'm just about to start watching has to do with knitted toys. They've talked about knitted baby blankets. Anyway, they have a really good chemistry and very enjoyable to listen to. So those are 3 video podcasts I can recommend if you're looking for something new to watch. I'm sure there are many, many more, and if you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments, either on Ravelry or on YouTube. I'm sure people, if you're watching this podcast, chances are you watch more than one, and you might be looking for some suggestions. And finally, I have this big question mark in front of me. Knit City, Vancouver is this coming weekend. I have gone the last 3 years, I think. I think I've been 3 times. 2 for sure, and I've always gone with my daughter. But she's not going this year, and I'm debating whether or not I'm going to go. Heaven knows I don't need any more yarn. And I'm fooling myself if I think I'm just going to go and look. I know Sweet Georgia will be there, and I do want to pick up another Party of 5 mini set to make one of these brighten up cowls for my son's girlfriend. But for the cost of gas and the cost of the admission, I could pay for shipping on that. I don't even know if they would have the one I want at the show. But then, like, Midnight Cravings is going to be back. I love their yarn. I would love to see it again in person. I haven't looked too closely at the vendor list because I'm trying to resist temptation. So I guess next episode you'll find out whether I decided to go or not. It's not quite the same going on your own. And like I said, it takes about an hour, not quite an hour to get there. And then there's an admission fee. I think it's $15, which is reasonable if you're going to be there for a decent amount of time. And I know they do need to cover their costs for the venue and such. So I don't have a problem with that. I'd have to pay parking too, though. And yeah, it just gets a bit pricey just to get in the door. And then I have so many lovely yarns and so many things I'm in the midst of knitting or right on the edge of knitting that I probably don't need to add to my stash. But I will let you know what I decide. I see my low battery lights came on. I'm gonna just click here in case. I don't think it would have stopped recording, but it was blocking my screen. Yeah, so I'll let you know next week, or next time I record anyway, whether or not I decided to go. I'm leaning to no, but we'll see. It is very tempting because we don't get big shows like that very often, and of course, we don't get Rhinebeck or anything like that around here. Anyway, on that note, I am going to say goodbye. So thank you as always for watching. Thanks for all your comments every week. I so enjoy reading them and interacting with all of you. I hope you have a good week or so ahead, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.